Excellent. That's what they need. Nicole's going to continue passing out something that I actually worked up last night. I'll explain the unusual nature of the presentation in just a second. So I am calling the meeting to order at 9:05. And let's go around and do introductions, starting with Elliot, moving to my left.
Elliot Robinson, Interim Executive Officer.
Judy Cabrera, Executive Director of CISO. Gina Alvarez, Associate Director of CISO.
Jack Murphy, Deputy Director, Veterans Transition Center.
Ken Kesson, Pastor and Executive Director for Victory Mission.
Good morning, I'm Jackie Smith, the coordinator of the Che Center, or El Centro Che.
Alexa Johnson, Housing Resource Center. Stacey Huber Perkins, Gathering for Women.
Casey Powers, not Barbara Mitchell, but I just took that one. Division Director of Program Services for Interim.
Glorietta Rowland, Monterey County Department of Social Services.
Christina Soto, Community Home Solutions.
Good morning, Robin McRae, Community Human Services. Betsy Wilson, Mid-Penn Housing.
And Jill Allen, Dorothy's Place. So,
Oh, should we go run that?
yes, please do.
Nicole Sakihara with the Homeless Coalition.
Derek Free with Women's Coalition.
Mary Eileen Diary, Interested Citizen.
And Kathy Wilden, Fund for Homeless Women and the Public.
Anna Velasquez, Senator Ana Cabello's office. Trishonda Young, I'm with the Che Center.
Wes White from Salinas.
Jared McCall, Salinas.
Sean Stone, Senior Program Officer at Community Human Services.
Roxanne Wilson from the Homeless Coalition.
Fantastic, and I'm trying to determine if we have a quorum.
Oh, I can do that. Hang on.
Enrique's on his way.
Yes.
Enrique's on his way.
Dorothy's. We have Housing and Resource Center. We have Interim. We have Mid-Penn. Enrique's on his way. We don't have Sun Street, so we have 6, which gives us quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, we have quorum.
Yay, we got the presence of a quorum. On to the next. This is our public comment period. The public is encouraged to observe our activities and to, now I gotta pause here for a second and say that everyone admires Kathy Wilden very, very much for being the public and giving us a lovely pat on the back right between the shoulders every board meeting. Now, don't expect that's gonna happen every time, because she's a very truthful person, and some days we may not earn as much respect as we normally do. But we also have to understand there are other members of the public here too, and we must not disrespect them by only seeing Kathy through rose-colored glasses. Anyway, members of the public are asked to sign in so that we can keep track of your presence, and we would like you to limit your comment to 2 minutes unless we end up with extra time, but we would love to hear from you now. Kathy Wilden.
You guys are doing a great job, and the fact that there's frost on all the roofs today, and you still came out to this meeting, you get a lot of kudos, and you deserve a lot more money, and I think the governor is thinking that too.
And the governor's probably listening right now, so Governor, that was the public telling you to give this coalition more money. Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to make comment?
I'll go.
Wes?
Yes. So City of Salinas is still doing a bunch of sweeps, and you know, like you said, it's frosty outside, it's really cold, and people just need to at least have the house that they're making for themselves and not have it taken away. You know, at least have a space where they are allowed to be. And I know this is coming up later, but you know, I'm more worried about people dying. So this is a huge issue just to have shelter. I mean, it's a human right. So tents, RVs, cars, those are affordable housing units, and I don't know if you can try to push that to be acceptable at this point in time. Not as a, you know, long-term goal vision, but we need to validate people in the space that they're at and let them be somewhere, and force that onto the jurisdictions, because I think that's really where the rub is. This is the caring side, and then we got the abusive side. And law enforcement should not be the first interaction, especially if they're associated with cars. So, thank you.
Thank you, Wes. I always get one good quote from you.
I like that.
Much appreciated.
It's like a fortune cookie.
Yeah, like that. Okay. So I'm going to, as usual, we have a stuffed agenda, and Elliot's going to want a lot of time to help us review this agenda. But during the chairperson's comments, I am going to make a simple comment, and then I'm going to expand on it just a little bit. The simple comment is, I have neglected to recognize associate members to the level that they should be recognized. And I'll go a little bit further and say, I think the level that the coalition should recognize. And so I'm going to now formally apologize to all associate members that didn't realize that they are a part of our board discussion. They may not have a vote. Our bylaws are written that way for a particular purpose, but they do have a vital place in the board discussion, and they do have the ability to influence that community discussion, because they are well-informed members of the community, and we encourage them to be at the table, which is why I asked Nicole to help me ensure that everybody is sitting at the table. I have looked around at past board meetings and realized that we had associate members on the fringes, and that I had neglected to get them to the table. So hopefully that won't occur again. Associate members, please know that you are welcome at our board table, and that you are welcome to give us your feedback and give us your ideas, your input, so that we can have better decision-making at the coalition board. To that end, we're going to very, very, very quickly look at this very strange piece of paper. My apologies for the presentation. That big black box at the top is the only thing that my home printer would do.
Make me stage it.
And I did not do it at work, so, yeah, no statement intended, just, little error there. Our bylaws committee is going to have their first meeting this year after this meeting, and I'm not saying that we're gonna do everything at once. It's probably gonna be several meetings, but my thought was, upon reading the bylaws about associate members, I noticed a few things that just didn't seem appropriate. And what I did, this is just my personal observation, this is not a committee observation, I called out 3 things in Article 4 that I thought needed to be thought about a little bit further. And then down below that, up above, we've got the bylaws as they read right now. Down below is, why aren't we thinking about this? And so I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna very quickly breeze over this, but I'm gonna ask you all to take this with you and look at it again later, because the bylaws committee is going to be coming back to this. So in the 1.1, it talks about associates are nonprofit agencies providing services to the homeless or intending to provide services. Okay, down below I called out, maybe we need to talk about, yes, that's what they are, and let's call them organizations, not agencies, because not everyone really terms themselves agency. But let's also point out why they are at the table, to provide needed input and feedback on critical issues discussed at the board of directors meetings. Now that's my verbiage. We may decide to go with a different meaning or something else, but this is just meant to kind of stimulate your thoughts. In 4.4, annual dues and contributions of associates shall be in amounts as shall be determined by resolution of the board of directors. Okay, well that sounds pretty normal, but I question, what is the basis for that calculation? Should we be making associate member dues more affordable? Because that's where associate members are going to be coming to the table, providing this input, and maybe eventually aspire to be voting members so they can actually influence the decisions that are made by this board. So we're gonna think about that a little bit later. And then there's this thing that I cannot assign any reason to whatsoever, especially in the digital age, is the associate book. I'll let you read that thing on your own and go, what in the hell is this trying to say? Okay, so please, end of my comments, take this with you, contemplate it, because we're gonna come back to it later. And I thank you very much. And now I'm going to call for any additions or modifications to the agenda.
Jill, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you provide, or can a schedule of dues be provided so that we can see what the dues actually are?
Yes, we can.
Bless you, Betsy.
Thank you. We can do that. Thank you very much. Any additions or modifications to the agenda?
Just really quickly, we do have more, not for long discussion, but we do want to hand out the work that we've been doing with Home Base, with the Leadership Council side of our house on their governing charter and continuum of care written standards. So we'll hand that out and we'll get there. But we do want to just brief in the item 7, your P&G, Lead Me Home governing charter and written standards.
Okay, so you're wedging it in here between?
We'll make it number I.
Aye, so as long as Nicole understands.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Then we're moving on to the approval of the December 18th minutes, which are attached. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review them. Is there any discussion required before I call for a vote? Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 18th meeting. Jack makes that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. Nicole?
Alexa seconded.
And do we have any further discussion? Your last opportunity to quickly scan to make sure your name is spelled correctly. Okay, all in favor of approving the December 18th minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Or no, whatever you like. And are there any abstentions?
I abstain.
Who's that?
Casey.
Okay. Casey with interim abstains. Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes passes. And now we are into our first discussion, led by Elliot, about the second draft of the encampment position video.
Okay, this is kind of our, hopefully, immediate discussion, or maybe hopefully not, maybe you're gonna say this is all great, but I want to make sure that as we create an encampment position paper, that it kind of meets the needs of our board of directors. So on page 33 of your agenda packet is the second draft, taking into account your comments from last time. It's marked up so you can see where there are changes. The big changes in the first paragraph, just to run through them, rather than, we've changed the sentence to read, to address this reality of insufficient housing and shelter options, communities, housing and unhoused, along with service providers, public, nonprofit, faith-based, and voluntary offer resources that aid survival and opportunity. So we said that can allow survival, we just changed it to aid in survival. Next paragraph, we changed the sentence, this lack of extremely affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and emergency shelter space exacerbates the housing crisis. And then we just added the word too often forces local constituents without housing to form their own communities in the form of encampments. On the next page, where it gets a little bit more meaty, it is the position of that the local jurisdiction, service providers, and community experience homelessness work together to create a more viable solution to the current encampment situation. This includes public disclosure of the specific health and safety or policy concerns being addressed when cleanups are scheduled. We changed the second bullet more substantially. development of resources that can support people living without housing to prevent the buildup of public health and hygiene risks. So we took out the section on multi-step process that's first provides, and then we give the same example. So it's a little bit vaguer, right, just saying that it's development of resources and calling out trash receptacles and hygiene resources such as public restrooms and fire. We continue to say give at least a week notice before cleanup is scheduled if the resources do not address the documented health and safety concerns. And so that's what we changed on the actual recommendations. And there was quite a bit of discussion about having action steps. So the action step kind of section is the coalition is committed to coordinate resources to support bringing people experiencing homelessness into housing and to addressing the circumstances that leave too many of our neighbors unhoused. This includes development of strategies and financial opportunities or financial resources for providers working to bring housing to all, advocating for county-wide collaboration in pursuit of this mission, and developing a coordinated outreach and resources for encampment team to respond to encampment concerns. The coalition would like to formally invite the Monterey County community. We need to add San Benito in there.
Yes, please.
We'll have to validate that we do that everywhere. My apologies, Enrique. You can.
You should just, speak up and pound the table on that.
Yes, do that, please. The coalition would like to formally invite Monterey County and San Benito County, public bodies, private organizations, and residents to participate in creating and implementing a system that does not criminalize residents fulfilling the basic human needs, but extends a helping hand in recognition of the complexity of their situation. So we tried to take into account the input we had last time, but it's always a little bit hard because it's not always consistent input, or sometimes there are things that differ. So back to the board with where we are on this position paper.
Okay, the first paragraph of the second page, the second bullet, development of resources that can support people living without housing, yada, yada, yada. In parentheses, for example, trash receptacles, hygiene resources such as public restrooms and showers. I would like to consider saying specifically low barrier, highly accessible public restrooms and showers. Because I know that in Salinas, often it is mentioned that there is an accessible toilet somewhere only to find out that at 9 o'clock at night it closes. Or it doesn't have any protection so people won't use it and it's not really accessible. So that's my rationale for that.
Okay.
When I hear highly accessible, I think of accessibility and a standard kind of, so you might want to use the word safe. But low barrier, highly accessible,
Well, Bear,
safe.
what if we say accessible, because that's your thing, the ADA side.
How about
That's what I said.
widely?
Yeah.
He also means a safe element, but I don't get that from accessible.
I'm the same way, I think ADA, so make
Yeah.
it widely accessible.
Low barrier, safe, and,
If you think about it in a pure sense, the population that we're serving is an ADA population.
I mean, it'd have to be ADA, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
just
we go with
adding the
the
word safe.
accessible, because we ask them to be accessible for people with disabilities, it has to be in compliance with the ADA.
What if you say
regularly accessible?
What if I say
It's
24
an
hours?
hourly thing.
What if I say 24 hour? With 24-hour accessibility? I mean, it should
I
be
like it.
accessible, but
That
that's, they'll have to do that anyway, we don't have to call it.
Throughout the county, it shouldn't just be in one location, it should be.
Yeah, this doesn't call out a location, it doesn't call out Salinas or anything. Okay, so low barrier, safe, and 24-hour accessibility. Okay.
In the following paragraph, the coalition, this is just a grammar, should be coordinating resources. It should be parallel to addressing, coordinating and addressing. And
It's committed to coordinating and what?
coordinating resources to support bringing the people.
Oh, you just, the ing, yeah, there's,
Because it should be parallel with and to addressing.
yeah.
And then I would take out the word the, to support bringing the people, to support bringing people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, there are a few other kind of like places, if you catch them, that's great, we won't catch them later, but there are a few typos in there, I noticed as I was reading.
And in the next paragraph, instead of public bodies, that word just, to me, would be better to say public entities. And then private organization, it should be plural, organizations. And I don't charge for proofreading.
I often need a proofreader, particularly these days.
Anything else?
Anything else?
It's a good paper.
Well, that was quick, sure. Everyone's good?
Should we vote on this with the changes that we just discussed?
With the changes that were just discussed and any
Typos.
insignificant typos, that'll be fine.
Okay, this is an action item on the agenda,
Question.
correct?
So the intent of this document is to outline the coalition's position on the cleanups and whatnot, and to tell the community members, other municipalities, this is what we think should be done, let's all work together, this body's going to help coordinate it.
But not just cleanups, yeah. Overall living conditions.
I mean, this is more, yeah, this is about encampments, but it speaks towards cleanouts. Also attached is, I think Robin asked last time, what was our prior position
Which
on
is,
cleanouts, which is really, I think the
Page
2014
11,
is
on page 9.
the, yes, 36, 37 is the actual position. It doesn't at all talk about cleanups, and it just recommends standards if a community wants to set up a, basically a supported encampment. And this stays silent on, what we wrote now stays silent on if a community wants to set up a supported encampment. Is the real difference. This we have now is talking more about,
conditions as they exist now and what needs to be addressed within those conditions.
yeah, not developing a new.
It's not to
Spot.
mean that we won't decide to do that.
So are we gonna kind of catalog all of our positions so that, like, I'm just looking at page 36 and 37, not knowing if these are still our positions? So
I
are we gonna
think-
catalog them and keep them updated so that if we change position as time changes, it's noted?
And we could change the name, might be a better way to do this. This is more about informal encampments. So if we change the title to CHSP position on informal homeless encampments,
I just
then
make
it wouldn't
general,
supersede
you know?
this one. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we still have it, and so we could use
Right.
that.
I mean, I assume a position's a position until we say it's not our position anymore.
Right.
So I just wondered if we have a system in place to.
Robin's got a good point. And
Not
if-
robust, but we could create a catalog, as we should. I mean, the value of
create an
this.
associate's book, yeah.
Shouldn't these be on our website?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
It should absolutely be on the website, and if we are going to supersede a formal position, we need to say that at the bottom of.
And I don't think this should.
These are different.
From a
Right.
They're different, so we'd say this is position on informal.
And perhaps we should even go as far to say this does not supersede the previous position paper.
Okay, so we'll put that at the end, this does not supersede.
And that way it's very clear to,
Okay, those are the points.
So we better get those up on the website, because once we say this doesn't supersede something, people are gonna wanna see what that something was.
Yeah. So we'll create a section on policy positions?
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be brand new for us. I would assume we'd also distribute this to all our public partners. Is that,
I distribute it widest possible distribution.
okay?
Send it out to the press.
Especially the
Develop an extra phone line just
For
for.
widest possible distribution. Including San Benito County. You'll have to give me your press contact.
Do you want a motion, Joe?
Yes, please, I would entertain a motion.
I move approval of the encampment position paper with the changes discussed and allowing for minor administrative changes as needed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Betsy, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Then, all in favor of approval of the motion to approve the position paper with changes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. No. Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Yes, indeed, deserves a round of applause.
Look at that, and we're way ahead of schedule now.
We're not going to maintain that position for very long. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elliot to give us the information portion in section 7, and he's got a lot to talk about.
Okay, I want to start off with, if I can find it here. Let's just get there. The staff accomplishments, we're asked to put together our accomplishments. This is by no means an exhaustive list. Give you some for the edges, Nicole. Oh, that's enough for the edges. Okay, so starting with last year, last year started with really the whole scramble around HEAP. So we applied for the HEAP program and were awarded $12 million, and we dedicated those funds for the shelters, expand homeless youth services, building tiny homes, increasing outreach capacity, increasing rapid rehousing and homeless prevention funding, and implementing emergency shelter vouchers, providing capital improvements on 14 units for permanent supportive housing, and keeping this loan shelter open for another year. I do want to really recognize the staff that were on hand when the organization went through its crisis with the leaving of Catherine. That is Roxanne, Katrina, and Isra. They managed the challenge of maintaining business processes and logistics of relocating offices through that transition. And relocating offices was no small task.
Yes.
I also want to recognize our executive committee members who shepherded the opening of a dedicated investment account for HEAP funds and development of contracts for HEAP sub-recipients. That was no small task. That was done kind of by our volunteer board who had other jobs to do, so kudos and thank you. Then I just say the CHSP did relocate its offices from Martinez Hall to 1942 Fremont Street. We released the 2019 PIT. I suppose we also conducted the 2019 PIT. Thinking more on the release and all the politics of releasing the PIT, and a few scars and bruises along the way, but we got that done. With the HEAP administrative entity funding and also more effective use of our existing funding streams, we hired 2 additional staff members and modernized our salary structure. One of the additional staff members is focusing on compliance of HUD and HEAP contracted programs, and the others focusing on HMIS and CARS data. They also, with these changes, we also overhauled the duties over data management analyst into a program manager. Then we also, this was a big deal, the whole preparation of the HUD COC application in partnership with Homebase, and Roxanne just did really fantastic work shepherding that through and actually kind of modernizing our coordinated, our collaborative application. We developed additional partnerships with employment providers. We added additional policies for domestic violence emergency transfers and prioritizing chronically homeless individuals and families. We also analyzed racial disparities in service delivery. And I just want to say this partnership really did help our strengthen our collaborative application. And for those of you who didn't see the email yesterday, we got our funding for Tier 1 announced. And so all our Tier 1 projects were accepted. I think a little bit, I would have been easier if the bonus project was a bonus project. Bonus project really is a tier 1 project, which leaves the higher amount for Pueblo Del Mar in the tier 2 world. I will say a couple things. Our permanent supportive housing grants all received FMR, fair market rate increase. So that was good news, that was actually more than requested in those categories. I like to think, I don't know that I know, but I like to think that had to do with our better application. I think there's something like, how many million, 124 million, am I remembering the?
That's going into tier 2?
Yeah.
I think it's 122 million.
122 million going into tier 2, and I personally, given our strength in proposal, have a level of optimism. Sometimes it's unrealistic. I know oftentimes people see me as Pollyanna, but it's all good. I'm still optimistic on tier 2. We usually, tier 2 kind of is announced a couple months later,
Yes.
typically, so pause on that. But that was a big deal to update our collaborative application. We offered numerous trainings to provide professional growth and opportunities to the employees of our partners. That included VAWA training, anti-discrimination connecting clients to mainstream benefits, increasing employment, techniques to successful housing and retention, and of course our ongoing HMIS and CARS trainings. Then just as a preview for 2020 trainings that we have confirmed: Housing First, Trauma-Informed Practice, and Emergency Transfers, and Motivational Interviewing. And then that's something that we should actually look kind of as a whole group, how we can kind of expand and partner better, kind of almost as a training consortium with certainly our community-based partners, but also I think our public partners also oftentimes will have space in training, and if we can figure out how to leverage each other, we'll be a stronger system as a whole. Let's see, in 2017, HUD guidance on coordinated entry mandated annual evaluations. That had not been performed previously, so this year we partnered with Middlebury Institute for Advanced Program Evaluation and released a final report last December, which is part of our board meeting. Also, due to kind of some negative feedback we've been receiving from HMIS users, we decided to terminate CTA's HMIS system administration contract and contract directly with WellSky. That migration plus the services cost approximately $30,000 more than the usual $100,000 that CTA charges. However, next year we expect to see a $70,000 savings. In addition, the change of providers has proven to be fruitful. Agencies have already experienced quicker turnaround for requests for customization of entries and reporting. We partnered with Homebase to revise the COC governance charter and establish COC written guidance. That's a process underway. That's what we'll be sharing a little bit later. We established a COC monitoring plan so that we're actually monitoring the federal HUD contracts along with our HEAP contracts. We applied for and received a grant from the Community Foundation for outreach to individuals experiencing homelessness to participate in the decennial census. There's some complications in that, in all candor, that I don't know that I want to spend a lot of time in this meeting going over, but just so you know, it's, there's some complications in what the Census Bureau does not want us to do, which is basically much of what we put in our applications.
Well put.
We added the YWCA as an associate member to the coalition, which is, I think, fantastic for me, wearing my old hat, where, you know, a lot of domestic violence programs were under social services, and seeing the YWCA begin to flourish again is just so beautiful for me. We reactivated the Service Income Employment Committee. We developed a service map for Monterey and San Benito County. We established the coordinated outreach and resources for encampments team that we will have our meeting, third meeting, which will be just with the public partners who want us to do more, to see how we can partner with them. We met with the agencies, I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Last month, I think.
And the public meeting is, I think it's next week.
First.
We increased, or I actually should say, Monterey County's CAP team, and I'm looking right at you, Glorietta, increased our CAP grant by $55,746,000 this year, which will largely go to supporting a rewrite of our 10-year plan, we think, we hope. And we also changed language, which was a little bit problematic on how we managed the outreach, encampment outreach. And the whole language said, was kind of definitive that we will have these outreach teams, and the coalition is just a coordinator. I said, well, we can just coordinate, and we can't guarantee agency capacity to do things that are unfunded. So the rewritten language basically says kind of a couple things. It says we will distribute notices of cleanup when we receive them within 24 hours. So that's why you've been seeing a bunch of emails from me with all the, when I get a cleanup notice, we will send it out to the group. Hopefully, you'll be able to actually say, this is happening, and we're going to do some level of outreach if we can to people who are impacted. The challenge is oftentimes, if I'm getting 72 hours notice, you're probably getting you're getting 48 hours notice, which is a very hard time frame to redirect staff that already have jobs, particularly when you don't have a lot of staff to do this. But I think more importantly, we say we will establish the core teams, and we'll work together to figure out what's the best strategy to address encampments together with the jurisdictions. So I think the new language kind of recognizes the coalition's role as a coordinator, and also recognizes our value in coordination of setting up a team and working between the jurisdictions and the providers and establishing a policy that we can all agree to. And so just big kudos to Monterey County Department of Social Services CAP team and their finance team for figuring this out. We restructured our chart of accounts and financial operations. I know that's a little bit in the weeds, but it was a really big deal and is facilitating our ability to actually claim resources appropriately from our three big funding sources right now, which are Monterey County's Community Action Agency, the Action Partnership, Glorietta, the HEAP admin, and our HUD planning grants, and between foundations, member dues, and the support from San Benito County, it's a little bit more simple to get to how we account for those, but certainly when you're drawing down based on expenses, you need to have a chart of accounts and a claiming process that works. And I think we have that in a way that assures no double dipping, and that every dollar is appropriately accounted for. And we completed our 17-18 audit successfully. A little bit late, but it's successful. So those are the big accomplishments that we remember. There's a lot of daily activity that goes on, but those are the kind of the big kind of differences. I don't know if anyone has questions, comments.
I just want to comment, you've got a list of 20 important accomplishments that have happened in, and obviously some of this was built on previous activity, but this has happened in less than 6 months. And you've got 10 more in the works. So I just want to point out the level of activity and effectiveness of the coalition has increased multifold. And really thank our partners and thank the directors here for their interest and their involvement in the board meetings and anything else that we call you for.
And just a quick comment, I think that part of the success is the staff. Especially during transition, even now, anytime that we called, they were there, and I could tell they were busy, but never did I hear any complaints. And I think, they followed up, very professional and intact, so I think, that's kudos to for us there.
Thank you.
If I can just follow up on that, just as a personal comment, coming in here middle of July, it's like, no, I don't want to work anymore. My mind is catching up on all that stuff, which is genuine. I retired for a reason. But I just to say that really the leadership of your staff, not me, but the staff, is phenomenal. And, you know, I can take credit for a couple things, and I'm not gonna be that modest, you know, chart of accounts and audit stuff. I was like, but we got through that. But all, you know, frankly, all of the creative stuff and the program stuff that touches you more than just the organization, I do want to call out Roxanne in particular for, you know, thinking, oh my God, we got to get a collaborative application in. So, and I'm learning this. How do I get it done? And not only did she learn it on the fly and arrange the right resources to get it done, kind of with little shiny stars and sparkles coming off. That was a big deal. And kind of going down these things in the work, anywhere from how we manage data to a case management fair to marketing, what's happening is one of the things that I think is hardest in just about every community is someone without housing on the street is very salient, particularly, you know, one of the sad things about people, I'm just spouting, someone can slap me in the bit, but you know, when you identify someone as other, and that's the problem with the label of homelessness that we heard at a few, you know, they're other, they're not us. And I think that our society has done that. So, and a lot of times it's the basis of racism. It's the basis of sexism. It's the basis of not understanding gender preferences, that you identify someone as other, and they're not part of whatever your soul is, whatever your fabric of society is. And if we're marketing what we're doing, and we're marketing how we really are one community, that's a really important thing that we can also do as a coalition, to make the development of policies that support people who cannot find stable housing to not be identified as dangerous. There are dangerous people in the general population, there are dangerous people in the homeless population, there are dangerous men, there are dangerous women, dangerous white people, there are dangerous colored people, Asians, Hispanic, whatever you want to say. Challenges live everywhere. And when you identify someone as other, it oftentimes makes it so that the actions of an individual apply to the whole. So I think marketing is a kind of an important way that we can help address that. Okay.
So I'd like to thank Enrique for calling out the staff, and I just want to say in particular myself, it puts me in mind of where we were when we learned that Catherine was leaving. And of course, you know, you think the worst. You think, oh my God, what's happening here? What's going on that we don't know about, blah, blah, blah. And the executive committee sat down with especially Katrina and Roxanne, and you could tell that they were not exactly calm, but they presented to us very calmly, this is where we're at. This is exactly where we're at on stuff. This is what we're concerned about. This is what you need to be concerned about. And it just made me think, okay, we're going to get through this. This is going to not only be fine, it's going to be extra fine. And Roxanne and Katrina really pulled it out for us. A lot of work afterwards, but if it hadn't started on that note, I don't know how we would have made it through this.
And Anastasia,
Yeah, I just wanted to say you guys have done a fantastic job. I'm so impressed, especially, you know, the staff, Roxanne, Katrina, everybody, the new staff that's on board, Elliot and the executive team. You guys have made this organization a lot stronger, and I think right now, while the state is really pushing us to collaborate and work together and really map out our resources, I see a lot of really great things happening here, and it makes us a stronger organization to collaborate with to solve homelessness. So really appreciate all the hard work. You guys are doing a great job.
I'm going to be pedestrian. Can you describe number 16 for me, the service map for Monterey and San Diego?
Derek, do you want to describe it?
What is it?
Yeah, so,
I don't know, have we released it broadly?
I don't
Something that goes into our map.
so
Nicole was working on sending out emails to a lot of you to get what services you do, and then I'm working on putting them into Google Maps, or now I'd like to put them in Tableau as well, to put them on our website.
So it's in progress?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. It's a service now.
We have dropped, yeah, so you can see what's the location of the services. You know, our hope is, you know, if we get a good map of encampments and where homeless people are, and part of that.
That would be super helpful.
If they could stay
Jump
there.
down to to
Yeah.
item D, and kind of note, I kind of talked about the CAP contract revision already, so I don't know that I need to do that anymore. 2021 census planning, one of the things that Anastasia asked for, and I think it's a really a good request. When we do our census, now it's by census tract, which some census tracts are big, some census tracts aren't so big, but we just say this is the population per census tract. We don't necessarily, and then when we create the report, we just create it, we break it down by city. Because really all anyone sees is a city breakdown. And Anastasia said you should use some better digital system managed by ESRI that's available on smartphones that can geocode where you, when you're doing the census, you can say, okay, I see this, and this is where I'm recording it. And so the actual location is better tracked. So if you can create a map of where there are people and a map of where there are services, it will certainly help us better plan how to fill gaps, how to improve access. So that's kind of what the service map needs to do.
So Elliot, is this to be accomplished in coordination with the census, as a result of the census?
It will be more meaningful. It will give more meaning to the census. We can, I mean, we can release it now.
I think they're still working on a couple of agencies.
Okay, well, we're close to being able to release it. And which becomes a question. I remember when the Leadership Council first started, I think there was the idea that the only shelters resources we have are in Salinas and kind of the marina portion of Fort Worth. And there's that impression that was broadly through the community. And so, you know, I remember in social services, I created just a mini map. And say, no, there's the youth shelter, there's Salvation Army, there's the Safe House, you know, there's more around the county than people always perceive. And I think that's part of the mapping problem. I mean, even when you think of density, we didn't put this on accomplishments because we only kind of did it more internally, but we actually took the census numbers and did something a little different, because you just see raw numbers in the census. And raw numbers, you say, oh my God, what's going on? If you go per capita, it's a little bit different picture. So if you think of per capita, where is the density of homelessness? Salinas is at the top, but not very, very far behind Salinas is Monterey, with a different set of nooks and crannies where it's harder to do the count. So again, data, impressions are valuable, and you're never going to change whatever a salient impression of the world is, but data can help shift that to say that this is a problem, or I don't want to call it a problem, it's an issue that every jurisdiction faces. And that we really do need to figure out how to get every jurisdiction to participate. One of the things that I say a lot, and sorry for my public partners that are here, you know, homelessness is something that's, everyone wants someone else to do something about somewhere else with someone else's money. For a long time, it was mostly the federal government. Then in the last 2 years, the state in a big way has said, no, we want to share in this solution profoundly. And so now it's largely state funded. There is some local jurisdiction money, thank you certainly to Monterey County, thank you to San Benito County, and also the city of Salinas has put, you know, a fair amount of discretionary money in funding things like the downtown streets teams. So it's that, how do we, and I also have to add to it, also all, not all, but probably most of your employees are also the biggest donators, because we have a lot of individuals who are not working at the best wages, sorry for being blunt, because I know you're paying what you can in the world you operate in. We have organizations completely voluntarily funded. with employees who are just doing yeoman's work to make a difference at very low pay. And so actually at the top of the list, I have to put your employees as the contributors to this issue. But then probably after that comes the state, and then after that comes the federal government, and after that comes our local partners. And we need to bring up as much of that, it's about us. It's about our community. It's my pitch. And I don't know what else, no, that's the 1021, the census, talking about ESRI. So one of the things that as we're planning the census, so we started planning the census already with San Benito, Monterey, and we're also including the city of Salinas there as our ESG and CHHAP partner.
Elliot, has a census planning committee been formed?
We've been using kind of, we're calling it the county collaborative, even though we have the city there, but we've been really addressing 3 issues kind of at once. Rewrite of the 10-year plan, the census, and HHAP, so that we can coordinate our HHAP applications as much as possible.
For the service map, before it's released, I'd like at least to see it and see if it represents San Benito County.
Okay, yeah, we'll share it with the board then before we release anything.
The question, and I think I'm going to direct it to Anastasia if that's okay. When we're talking tracks, I know certainly the county for the CDBG applications has already broken out all the urban county areas, and I just got done with Seaside and Monterey's applications also, and they in turn break down their municipalities into tracks that can be, you can focus efforts and really resources.
Low mod populations within those census tracts.
Yes,
right.
can we use those track blocks to get after what Elliot's suggesting?
Those are, I think, I would say different due to the fact that we're looking at low mod populations that are housed in those census tracts.
Okay.
Whereas what we're looking at for the census is actually where are people locating who are unhoused, and that's not tracked in the census. I think this census count is going to be the first one I can think of that really is treating homeless, and I'm talking about the 2020 big census, homelessness very differently and requesting different information and putting it as a priority. This is my 3rd census. I remember the 2000 census, 2010, and here we are. This is a very different process because it's just such an epidemic. It's never been, so our homeless point in time count, we can get more local, better data if we're using this ESRI app. And then we can target resources, target our funding, those types of things. It'll help us. HUD has a really great, if you go onto the HUD Exchange and just type in HUD Exchange ESRI homeless tools, you can read about how other communities are utilizing this technology in their homeless planning.
I think it's different than the tracks you're utilizing.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
good for CDBG and, where low mod income populations reside. Like, okay, here's a low mod community that needs their streets repaved, and we know that, 51% of the area is low mod, but those are people who are housed, who, the CDBG funds are to help the low income, community get resources that they need, so not everything goes to Main Street, or not all your federal funds end up helping already communities that are wealthy.
Got it.
Yeah.
So back to kind of some of our 2021 census plan. So we've convened the public partners already, kind of more thinking about what are some, well, actually I should say we've convened the funders of the census already to get what the strategies are and to understand some of the challenges people had with the 2019 census. And in all candor, when the 2019 census occurred, that was just as the Leadership Council was saying, we need to focus on HEAP, on HEAP, on the Homeless Emergency Aid Program. And the organization didn't have the bandwidth to manage both. So a lot of the work was put on our vendor, and we've also kept, the vendor was keeping their prices lower based on the funding we had available. available. And so we're gonna try to change that. We have more bandwidth now, and so the big thing is going to be to organize both our knowledge base with the providers and with the homeless community and with public entities, particularly police, public works, and fire on locations, so that we can better coordinate the work of the volunteers. You know, put on your list of things to pay attention to. I think we have the date, right? It's the last January, the last
Wednesday in January.
I believe is what we're aiming for. Last Wednesday of January. So start thinking now about, don't make any plans for that week because all of you guys need to volunteer. And all you guys need to bring out volunteers.
It's January 27th, 2021.
Is what our goal is. Certainly that's not fixed in stone yet, but that's our goal. And if you need to just block off that week. Block off that week. We need volunteers throughout the county to do as robust.
So that doesn't prescribe the date, I forget.
It's the last week in January.
Last 10 days.
That's any, we pick the date within that.
Yeah.
Elliot, I just want to make a comment, and I'll make a comment as a city council member for the South County communities for the city of Soledad. So I know in the last 2019 count for us and participation was really low, and it was really a challenge. So I think now is moving forward, and as you said, you're establishing partnerships, especially with different local governments, working with police and working with fire to make sure that everybody's on board and that we know this is coming and that we're moving forward to making sure that we have volunteers and that we have within each of our cities. We already have different coalitions, a group of community groups that are already working in some fashion or another, and that we really make sure that we are providing that information also to expand that volunteer pool, and especially in some of the communities where I know you want volunteers and volunteers are important, but it's really important also to get volunteers that live within those communities.
You know, that's actually, I don't think I put it on the Leadership Council agenda for next week. It might be early, we might want to do it, we could do it the next meeting, but to actually talk to, make that message to all the cities that say, work with who you know. And also, this is, as, when the census would come out and us in social services, I would always give my staff leeway to go there. And that's oftentimes easier in public agencies to kind of define that as a role that kind of your staff can go on when we have difficulty arranging volunteers. So that's another thing. Oftentimes I know public agencies, make things easier around the vote, around the census, and, the decennial census, or in this case, our homeless census. So I think it's a great idea.
I also think it's important to make the communities aware that we don't want to decrease the numbers for property values and city reputations, because along the way I've heard feedback that sweeps get done right before these census. So like underneath the Carmel Bridge, there tends to be an encampment there and has been for a long time. I don't know if that happens in Chinatown as well, but it seems that's also a way in terms of property owners' needs in a community to clean things up before the census comes along.
Yeah, that was definitely the rule of thumb for several of the censuses that were conducted, that the law enforcement felt that by removing persons out of their normal places who are experiencing homeless, that it would be to the benefit of their community, where actually what it does is just hide this whole situation. The services that are needed are never really made available.
I was always oblivious. Thank you for kind of shining a flashlight on that one. Yeah, that's kind of silly.
It happens.
People shouldn't do that.
Right?
That just, I don't know that anyone uses our data for property values. I hope not.
Or just the stigma of having a population that is homeless in your community. They didn't want that, even though that's reality. People just want to turn the blind eye to it.
Yeah, we definitely want to get that message out to jurisdictions. Yeah, don't do that. Okay. Maybe, should I go back to do I have to go back to the position paper and put a bullet in there, and by no means do any sweeps the month before the census.
Please.
I don't know that I'll put it in the position paper, but we'll make a sense, we'll make some statements.
We'll make some calls.
Okay. So that's where we are in census planning. In a nutshell, we've started convening with our funding partners. Rewrite of the 10-year plan. So 10-year plan is, many of you know, is both valuable, but it's also been a little bit of a lightning rod at times. I mean, I'm thinking back a few years, 2016 when I was in social services, I heard all sorts of comments. It's like, you have this plan, why aren't you doing it? It's like, well, for my public role, I'd say, well, it's a nonprofit organization that organizes this. Their funding is, I think at the time that all that critique came out, CAP had like a $25,000 contract, maybe 40, something like that. Something like that. Like everyone's saying, it's like, if you expect something you have to pay for what you expect. And the 10-year plan itself was very aspirational. It wasn't necessarily realistic. It said things that you'd want to hear. That, we're going to end some homelessness in 10 years. And we're going to do all these great things. We're going to make sure that when people are released from prison and released from hospitals, they're going to have a place to go. They should. That's an important part of every plan. But it didn't necessarily say, well, if it's not funded, though, it's not going to happen.
The resources were not there.
The nonprofit community is not necessarily just going to make it happen, although the nonprofit community and the faith-based community does just some pretty amazing things. So hopefully we'll have a little more robust plan. We've kind of solicited proposals from folks we knew who would do it. We're reviewing the proposals with our funding partners at this point. Our hope was to have it done by June 30th because one of the funding sources is also salary savings from the executive officer position, which is kind of dissipates at the end of June, and some of our CAP money dissipates at the end of June. So we're trying to figure out how much we can get done. Most of our folks we talked to said, well, you should have at least a 9 to 12-month planning process, not a 4-month planning process. So those are things that we're kind of sorting through on the road there. And I don't know, Roxanne, Anastasia, I guess you guys, more than anyone, anything to add to that?
I did request the update to the proposal to extend the plan and to include some language about the census and everything, so I'm just waiting for the response on that, but I think we have it pretty nailed down.
One of the hopes, I mean, there are two hopes. For me, just this idea of having an outcomes-based budget. So people know that it's, so if it's aspirational, we can say, well, this aspiration should kind of take about this much resource. Because we should be, we need to be aspirational. But also to have better data tools to track where we're going. And that's something that I think we need to look at. And that we're kind of looking at in our proposals, which ones will have appropriate data tools so that we can actually, on an ongoing basis, monitor our progress along the plan. Okay. HHAP update. Okay, so HHAP, we are moving forward with preparing the COC side of the application. And we are doing it in partnership with San Benito and Monterey County, each who also has an HHAP application. One of the things that kind of as a group was decided is that since, many of the contracts, if it was all kind of put into the COC, we'd go back and contract with a public entity, and it just makes more sense that kind of they can manage their side of the equation. And it also gives us, I used to say with some programs that, sometimes you want a menu. And this will make for kind of a menu for the provider network as they look to, how they're gonna put in applications. They might put 2 in, that's fine. That's a little bit more work for you guys, sorry. But it's also 2 chances. And I do expect that we will be coordinating our reviews of applications so that things are are consistent, we don't have overlaps. That's one of the things that I think is important to the state, not to have overlaps. So that's why we started meeting early, so that we can ensure both in application and after application and implementation, we can assure no overlaps and make maximum use of the funding that's available. The allocations, just so you know, are on some piece of paper sitting in front of me. For the Continuum of Care, which will be handled by the coalition, the allocation is $3,185,326. For San Benito County, it's $311,008, and for Monterey County, it's $2,660,606. So 2.7, 3 million, and 3.2 million for the coalition.
And of those amounts, 5% is for admin and 8% is for
The,
youth?
I'm gonna, no, Noel, Nicole may need to correct me. 7% for admin
Okay,
is a cap. It can be less than, but the cap is 7%.
got it.
There's a 5% cap on planning.
But that's optional, right?
What's that?
Planning is optional.
Optional, yeah. It can be 5%, it can be 0, somewhere between. It can't be more than 5. Youth is a minimum, so there's a floor of 8% on youth services. And then everything else kind of falls between buckets that I think anything that is really relevant and meaningful, innovative, we can figure out where to put it in.
And it's unaccompanied homeless youth as defined by like youth?
I would assume it's the same definition. I don't, did you hear a different definition from you? I was going to say something relevant. Okay, never mind. When we submit the application, we will put money in budget buckets because we have to. The money we put in budget buckets are not set in stone. They're revisable just like they were for HEAP. And one other caveat, those numbers are big, right? 3.2 million for the coalition, 2.7 million for Monterey County, 0.3 million for San Benito County. But also keep in mind the expenditure period. HEAP was 2 years, so if you think about the HEAP 12 million, it's really 6, if you divide it evenly between years, about 6 million per year. This is divided over 5 years. So it sounds big, but the window you can spend it in is also broad. I just want to kind of highlight that. And I'm going to add something for HEAP update because I didn't put it in the agenda modification time. The governor's budget. Yeah, especially because we were just talking about it. So the governor's budget kind of continues the work of the state to address that. And there's some things. I mean, one of the things also to keep in mind that in last year's budget, the governor's, or the state budget, the adopted budget, the budget trailer bill language, put more pressure on jurisdictions around developing affordable housing, and very affordable housing. So something just that we all need to keep each other on track on. So it's something to be aware of, kind of the requirement to build additional housing. In this year's budget, there is another one-time allocation of funds, and this is a proposal, although in general the governor's budget is a really good starting point to go from. Sometimes the legislature on issues like this, given who the legislature is, can increase it. I've seen that happen before. Chances are they won't decrease it, would be my rough prediction. So $750 million, which will be allocated for short and long-term rental subsidies, contribution for new developments in exchange for rental credit, both stabilizing board and care facilities. And board and care facilities are actually part of our network that we don't talk a lot about, but they are actually permanent supportive housing programs. Capital projects, operating subsidies, landlord mitigation, converting state property into permanent supportive housing, and affordable housing opportunities. So this $750 million fund will be administered differently than HEAP and HAP. It's not going through the Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council. This is going through the Department of Social Services at the state level, which to me says it will probably be something contract kind of specific, or they talk a lot about contracting with regional entities. So there's a lot of words that are different that I don't quite understand where it's going to go, and we won't yet. But it will have somewhat of a different imprint, I suspect, probably with more state control over what's going on. I have to say, after working for 31 years with the State Department of Social Services, of any state agency to work with, they probably are, in my opinion, the best. I'm a little bit biased, but if you compare them to HCD or Department of Health, they're like ages that are, they tend to pay attention to the right stuff, not how is the dot on your eye is an appropriate dot or not. So I really do appreciate social services, although it may be less directly coming to kind of the continuum of care, but it may not.
I also think it's important to keep the goodwill of the community on board, because something that I've heard, like with the rapid rehousing program, was landlords came on board and then it took so much time for them to get paid that they weren't doing it any longer. And I'm hearing the same kind of thing with some of the motels in Salinas and Seaside with the vouchers. So you get people that come on board and want to help, and then their payment lags, and so then all of a sudden when new suggestions come back out, they're less likely to participate, or at least that would be my opinion.
No, maybe we can chat afterwards too and see if there's some problem solving we can do there, because I'm looking at some of our rapid rehousing providers. I'm sure they're like, no, we pay on time. But yeah, if there's specifics.
I definitely have not been made aware of any lag in payment for the motels, and I'd like to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And I have a list of places too.
So the other thing that's in the governor's budget is, it sounds to me like he's preparing for the end of the whole person care pilot. And so he's reforming Medi-Cal into the Medi-Cal Healthier California for All program. The hope is that within Medi-Cal, for the homeless population, they will be able to build into the overall program many of the same elements of the whole person care program. So that's a big deal, and also I think for a big deal, and I don't quite understand it, it'd be nice to have a presentation from our behavioral health partners once they get enough information. It's probably still early, but kind of changing the nature of how behavioral health and behavioral health financing works. That tends to be, when you get into all the issues of medical necessity and charting and audits, it's something that is, looking at Casey, it's a little bit daunting, isn't it? And it makes it hard to serve people with mental illness. I don't see, yes, Robin is nodding as well. So I don't know what's going to come out of that, but they are looking at improving how the behavioral health program can work in its implementation. They also want to focus on reforming Prop 63, the Mental Health Services Act, to focus on people with mental illness who are also experiencing homelessness. And then there's something called the Community Care Collaborative Pilot for 3 counties, which we should read up on and hopefully make an application.
What did you say that was, Elliot?
Community Care Collaborative Pilot, which will only be in 3 counties, and that's providing incentives to treat and serve individuals deemed incompetent to stand trial, and to develop community-based treatment options for individuals with mental illness and or experiencing.
Have they already identified the 3 counties, or are they TBD?
TBD. And they also want to expand the jail-based competency treatment program to include an additional 8 counties. So, if you haven't read the governor's budget, I think I emailed it out to the board, but I did it from my personal email. Don't use that email. I thought it was going from my work email, but it's from my personal, actually it's from my second personal email that I looked at less than my first personal email. It really goes to my wife's email.
Oh, she's happy.
hate it.
Okay. HHA.
Can I go back to HAP?
Mhm.
And just tell me, I have like 4 or 5 questions. Should I just ask you those offline, or do you want me to go ahead and ask them here? I feel like I need information to start thinking to be prepared.
Why don't, since they may be useful to the group, why don't you ask them, and I'll say, ask me later.
Do you have any idea what the RFP process will be for organizations after the Continuum and counties submit their application?
It'll look a lot like,
No, I mean the timeframe, I'm sorry.
no, it will trail the
February,
application. I think the Leadership Council will probably want to hear your input on that.
Okay. You're gonna have the same kinds of things like site control required for capital development, a 10-year commitment to operate the program, doing prevailing wage, all that. We expect the same kind of stuff? Can the money be used in furtherance of existing projects, or does it have to be a new or enhanced project?
It can,
Could it be, for example, if you got money to operate the shelter, that it was limited, could it be more money to operate the shelter?
the caveat to keep in mind is no supplementation.
Right, that's okay.
So this, again, as a coalition, we pushed the no supplementation issue, or, excuse me, as a leadership council, we pushed the no supplementation issue with HEAP. It's explicit
Right.
in HAP,
And then one last question.
which I think is very valuable, that it's explicit
Sure,
in HAP.
absolutely. You said that there would be some sort of like a menu for the provider network. Does that mean that providers will be limited to proposals that fit that menu? Or could providers propose something that had not been considered in the application that you all are preparing now? Because I don't know that you got input from providers to put that menu together, or maybe you did.
I don't know, I would hope that we, do put, focus on innovation. I don't know that we'll put that in the initial budget, because I think we'll just kind of put percentages and buckets and just say, there it is for now.
What are the buckets, just like general, like X% rapid rehousing, X% capital,
Yeah.
X% services?
Yeah, and I think what we talked about in our meeting was X% in outreach, X% in shelter, and X% in rental assistance. Is it shelter or rental?
Yeah, well, shelter and rapid.
Shelter and rapid rehousing.
But did you have the services covered?
Outreach is what we put it in. We could put it in general services bucket. But I'll just say, at this point, what we put in the application is not as relevant as what challenge is. I would actually encourage us not to just run out the gate right now with HHAP. I think it's probably worth planning, given that HHAP, smaller bucket of money, 5-year cycle. So I think, kind of given that it's a 5-year spending cycle, and again, I think the Leadership Council, whatever they're
given
doing.
to coordinating.
Yeah, and planning a little bit more robustly what we need.
But it's good
That
to
would be
have
my
fodder
recommendation.
in the hopper so that your brain can start thinking about these things.
Maybe we should send out the toolkit to the board.
I have the state one, it's just not specific to our area.
And I would say,
But thank you.
and let me just get a head nod. If I say, we don't have to rush out the gate, just head nods from everyone at the table and around the side. Do you think we need to rush out the gate, or can we pause? I'm also looking at Anna, who works with the legislature. Run out the gate or pause, and make sure we're planning.
No, I think pause.
Be deliberate. But we're looking at funding in the fiscal year 2021.
Given the HEAP process, which we did run fast on, because big pot of money over 2 years. That, by the time the contracts were let, it was July. And the start time was relatively similar, maybe, I think, a month earlier. So I would expect you wouldn't see the money flowing into fiscal year 2021 would be my personal. I mean, Leadership Council can say something else. They can say, we want it out here now. And, they're the governing board kind of on that COC policy. So we would certainly pay attention to that. If they say get it out now, and then staff has their work cut out for them. And you have your work cut out for you as providers. But my recommendation is that we take a pause to really analyze gaps. And, use those resources as effectively as possible.
Good idea.
Okay. Did everything up to Monterey County Gives. Just to let you know, our Monterey County Gives campaign received $9,560. That's prior to any matching funds from the actual Monterey Gives process. And our proposal was to use the funds we raised as stipends for kind of homeless people who can support us in any number of walks from the core team, which kind of point us to the core team. But we'll come back with you guys with specific proposals, I suspect, at some point. And let you know how we're using it, but it's kind of, the idea is that it's stipends for people experiencing homelessness who can support us with outreach, with access and identification, and help bring people into services.
85, can you do that?
Oh, I don't know 85 well.
We'll examine.
We'll have to look at 85, yeah, that's true.
I
I just had a conversation totally
Great
different one
idea.
about that.
That's a great idea. You probably maybe like.
I don't know that you can do me 85.
Maybe give them a gift card instead or something.
Yeah.
What did you say,
They don't want
85, Assembly Bill 5?
And so we could restrict.
Yeah, they could, if it's part of your core mission, now they'd have to be employees as opposed to, hey, you're a
Oh,
contractor.
that, yeah, you know, they keep things,
Standard.
Okay, moving along quickly. Bylaws Committee is meeting this after this meeting for our first effort to review the bylaws. Roxanne, service employment income, anything we want to?
Well, they're the ones that have been establishing which trainings that we should be offering to the network. So if you want to come. Just be on the lookout for my emails. I'll blast them out every once in a while saying I need again. And they're also the ones that's coordinating the case management fair. So we're doing a case management fair, if you haven't heard. We're still trying to get contracted for the location that we've decided to go to. But it's a resource for case managers. There'll be tablings, you guys will be there. This is your notice officially. So find out which staff you want to have table. But yeah, it'll be an all-day event, so case managers can come and learn about the different resources that are available to the community that they serve. So there you go. Oh, and CSUOB students, of course, will be there as well.
Okay. Written standards and governing charter for the COC. Things like the governing charter is, again, that's something you're supposed to review every year. We established it in 2016, if my memory is right.
Yes.
The latest governing charter. So we've been working to update the governing charter for the Leadership Council and develop written standards for the continuum of care. Much of the written standards and governing charter we're kind of going over to make sure it meets the various federal requirements for a continuum of care. This is the work of the Leadership Council, but your board, as key stakeholders in the Leadership Council, I would like to give you the written standards more than anything. I don't quite have enough copies for everyone, do I?
There should be 21 altogether. I think Nicole passed them out.
Oh, they're already passed out. Does anyone need a copy of these? If anyone needs one, there's some more. And so review that. If you have comments, what I plan to do next week is do the same thing with the full Leadership Council, saying review it. We're not going to adopt it on Wednesday next week because it needs a little bit more conversation and thought from all the key stakeholders. But we will incorporate, and if you have comments, those of you who aren't on the Leadership Council, we will certainly bring your comments back to the Leadership Council, and I'm sure we'll also have comments from them. But this is the draft after, 1, the work of Homebase, 2, the work of the groups that we convened to also provide input. And then we're releasing the draft for any public stakeholder type comments before we actually finalize. And there's also the governance charter. Governance charter You know, one of the big things also to think about in the governance charter is kind of who the membership is, and by and large, just strategically, when the leadership council was formed, one of the big missions was to say, we need more jurisdictions at the table. And so that was kind of what the revision we did to the governance charter in 2016 accomplished. Now, you know, we see, you know, the seat for a homeless, for someone with lived experience, that I think we're in the process of filling.
Yes.
And you know, there are other stakeholders who aren't formally at the table, notably public safety and hospitals. Formally, I mean, they're at the table, but they're not formally part of the leadership council. Okay.
Okay, so we're at 10:30, but I would like to take 5 minutes to complete the agenda, and so we're going to combine agency updates and HEAP updates for those agencies that have HEAP updates. But also to let you know, in future meetings, we're going to get a little bit more in-depth on HEAP progress so that we can inform the rest of the board, and that will have a bearing or receive input from the evaluation process that Nicole is doing for HEAP. So let's just go around the table. We'll start with Enrique.
Okay, so for HEAP, I'm just gonna highlight the transitional units. You know, anytime there's a capital project, it involves different steps, you know, processes. So there was last week a fault line. So the location that we've identified, there's a fault line that's maybe 100, you know, feet away, a little over 100. So by rule, we have to do a survey of it. So drilling did take place last week, and as soon as we get the report, we'll see what it says. I suspect that it should be fine because there's other housing that we've done in the past, but the prior report has been maybe 20 years ago. It's a long time ago, so there's one that we are working on right now. An architect is still doing the preliminary design plans for the location, not just units, but it's more the location and how many can we fit, you know, because we're almost 14, so we're hoping that we can fit, you know, all those units. And there's also surveyor, topographic surveyor that went over middle of last month to assess the land and the slope and all that. And so we're waiting on that. And the goal is for the second meeting of Board of Supervisors or the first meeting of March, but we're hoping the second meeting of next month, is to take to the board the release of the bid to get moving on that. So that's a quick update.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes. So I'm going to leave the HEAP update to Gina, but a little bit of update of what our agency has been working on is we are currently closely closing on the SESH program, so that's coming into work. So we're getting ready to launch that and get ready to start providing services under SESH. CISO has been working a lot with Census, providing workshops, providing training on the Census. We currently have 2 grants under Census to provide those workshops. We are also working on becoming a certified ABRC center. So that is also in the works, and we have a partnership with San Benito County and Monterey County, so that's one of the things that we are working on.
Judy, what's ABRC?
Aging and Disability Resource Center.
And we're working with the AAAs, that county.
Yes, it's a core partnership with the AAAs and the ILCs.
So quick update on the HIP. As today, we have enrolled about 30 consumers. 7 of them are currently housed, and we have 5 of them pending that hopefully will be signing the lease by the end of the month. We're still providing case management and housing support, so between independent living skills training, time management, and also assisting them to apply for Social Security benefits. So, and of course, we'll continue taking the calls. So we have our case manager, Emerita Supervisor.
Thank you. Yeah.
Last week, the Board of Supervisors awarded the BTC $3.9 million from No Place Like Home towards Light Fighter Village, which is great for us. It keeps that project, you know, on the stove. About half the units will now be whole person care type units, so the county will help kind of regulate who goes into those. They'll still have to be veterans because of our deed restrictions.
I've got the grant per diem reapplication coming due here in the next about month or so. I will likely be making a change to our demographics, the number of beds we have. I'll increase the number of clinical beds, and I'll decrease the number of bridge beds, just because we're not seeing that many folks come through. On a non-VTC issue, essentially, I'm asking for your help. I submitted, I gave Roxanne a memo yesterday to distribute to everyone out. I'm involved in this homeless court project, and it is just this grassroots thing. Anyone who's a Monterey County homeless individual who has misdemeanor legal issues, we can get them resolved. It's an informal court. It is a no custody court, meaning no one's getting remanded or taken into custody. It is very kind of administrative. I work with the public defender, one of the deputy district attorneys, and we just kind of come up with a quick little thing, present it to a judge, and fines, fees, penalties, charges, gets resolved on the spot practically. It's very similar to stand-down court if you've been there before, but this is, service provider doesn't need to be there, the homeless individual doesn't need to be there, I just need the information. And we've done, gosh, a dozen plus, and I've only had one get kicked back as a, yeah, we're not gonna hear this one.
Do you have a flyer?
I have a little, it's almost like an info paper.
Jack, is this independent of veteran status?
Yes, that has nothing to do with veteran status.
Okay.
This is homeless individuals. You have to have a Monterey County misdemeanor, and you have to be homeless. The idea is it's a carrot to connect a homeless individual to a service provider. The service provider says, yeah, he is attending AA, so therefore we can resolve the public intox. Those kind of simple things. So if you know of individuals, just send them to me, have them contact me directly. There is no ROI process, there's no application process. It is just me on the phone trying to help folks out. So send them to me. Roxanne has it? It's not really a flyer, it's more like an info paper type thing.
You all now have it.
Yeah, see, there.
Well, the board has, the broader, non-board
no, I
members,
don't, actually.
non-board,
But we always use lawyers for other
members, I
things.
should say, associated with that as well.
No, they're represented by the public defender.
We'll put it on our website. Do they have to be homeless now or at the time of the listing?
Yes, that's so sketchy. Yeah, just send them to me, I'll make it work.
Just some quick figures, Victory Mission, at the end of December, we have served close to 12,000 meals in the month and just over 2,000 overnight shelters. And starting on February 3rd, we will be, for the first time in our 60-year history, we will be housing up to 20 women for overnight shelter. So, and that's basically what we've been hoping for some funding for that, and we received a unsolicited donation in December specifically for that. So we now have enough funding to run it for 3 months, and we'll continue to look for more funding as we move forward.
And that's going to be inside of Victory Mission?
It'll be in
addition
that's what's so unique about it. That'll be inside Victory Mission. We've had to come through a lot of work on the part of the staff to develop a plan that would work, that would keep the two groups apart, and we worked out a very good plan, and the board approved it, and we'll get one more approval from the board once we give them a final plan plus list of employees and volunteers, and we're starting February 3rd.
Ken, what is the length of time allowed to stay in the program?
For the overnight shelter, which we call the guest program, there's no defined time they have to be out of there. We've talked about putting a limit on it, but until there's another place for somebody to go, for certain, we can't put a limit on that. So, sorry about that.
So your facility is emergency shelter, transitional, what's the definition?
It's just emergency shelter, overnight shelter for somebody who needs immediate shelter. At this point, we're not equipped to bring them into our recovery program, which would be leading to the transitional program. We're hoping for that, but that would take some time to figure out how we would do that in an existing facility.
Ken, I don't have it lodged in my memory. What's your capacity?
We can handle up to 50 men for overnight. We're going to handle up to 20 women. And then we have 20 beds upstairs for the recovery program, which includes transition.
So you're concretely our second biggest shelter.
So it's about 90.
As I
About
just,
90.
just so folks know, I think that's kind of an important kind of concept.
It is indeed.
Kind of the land of, you know, where community members actually come together and do both the funding, which is really special.
Thank you, Ken. Jackie?
So hello again. So right now, we're on the fast track to move into Moongate Plaza. Did I call it right? Yeah, Moongate Plaza, where we intend to start operating as an integrated healthcare facility. And so as of now, we've already developed our infrastructure with anticipation once we move in there. And so we're trying to implement different pieces of that at our current site to make it a smoother transition. So that's what we're working on right now. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't want to say too much because I know I've been promising you all that we're going to present this big grand scheme of our ideas and everything with the layout, all this stuff since like December. But I promise you that it's going to happen in February. We just need to sign some more documents. We don't want to put this out here and then things fall through. So we want to make sure that everything is signed, everything is in place, and then present it to you and then invite you to join us. So next month, promise you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Don't hold me to it. Yes, but I promise.
Housing Resource Center has a few updates that I'll try to keep short, speak to the point. We did house 94 families for 2019, permanent housing where they've been able to pay on their own, so we're really excited about that. There was 12 families that we didn't put into permanent housing, but we connected them to resources for substance use, got them into transitional housing, so I like to take pride in that as well, just because if they're not ready for permanent housing, let's be honest about it, we don't really need help. So we did that. In February, we're looking to start, it's the first time HRC's ever done it, a rapid rehousing program for Prop 47. So it's going to be helping those formerly incarcerated, focusing in South County, to help formerly incarcerated individuals and their families, if they have them, find permanent housing and kind of get back into the workforce. So that will be starting up as well. In April, I can finally announce HRC will be moving to a better location. The location we're in now, we're not getting the services we need to keep the building up to code, and it just doesn't look good. And so we said it's time to move. We deserve it. So we're moving in April to, we just did a letter of intent to Quail Run Circle. So it's a good spot, and it has a lot of resources that we want to be able to provide to our clients too. Different spaces for desks so that they can get some other work done there. Multiple conference rooms so kids can run around, play. We have a play area set up so they'll have a TV to be able to watch a movie or play with toys. Just seems like a more all-around accommodating area for our families and the individuals that come in. And then HEAP, we did take in our first round of clients. We started a little bumpy on our HEAP project because we had some people leave. So we took in our first round right before the holidays hit. And we've kind of worked with them. There's some extreme barriers there. So me and my team decided instead of looking for housing right away, let's see if we can help set them up with the resources that they need, which has proven to be beneficial. Get some, start applying for Social Security, help with unemployment, kind of getting those resources connected to them. And it's been pretty promising. We just had a meeting yesterday with our HEAP clients, the staff that runs the HEAP program. And we're at the point where we're like, okay, we kind of feel confident that we can start looking for housing for them and that they feel confident in looking for housing. So we're hoping that next week, I haven't told Katrina this yet, but that we'll get some more referrals in for HEAP and take in some more clients and kind of keep building from there. I think that's my time.
Well, let's ask your target for HEAP. Do you have a target population?
Target population?
A target number.
A target number or population?
Yeah,
we wanted to put 20 families into housing, but all our criteria is that you are homeless and it's a non-CalWORKS individual. And the idea behind that is we have 2 programs that already help with CalWorks, as you know. I don't know if you know that, Gloria. And so we want to be able to reach out to other populations that might not be getting the help that they need.
Thank you. Stacy? Okay, so quick numbers, Gathering for Women Monterey saw over 400 women in their case management. We gave out, or served over 12,000 nutritious meals. We have just completed, almost completed our strategic planning process, which we're really excited about. And very excited to be partnering with Community Human Services, which I'll defer to Robin to talk more about on the shelter.
Interim updates, let's see, so the cash funding has come out, so we're getting started with that with City of Salinas, so getting back into the church library project, and we have a new staff member who's working over there now, Regina Williams, who some of you know, anyway. So she's gonna be over there starting very soon, actually. We're moving her into that project because she's a good fit for it. We have, let's see, we are already almost fully to our City of Monterey and City of Salinas contracts with our outreach. So halfway through the year, and we've already outreached about as many people as we're contracted for, and we're going to keep going through the end of the contract year there. Let me see, what else am I missing? Don't recall. I think that's kind of all that's on my, that's on my mind.
Thank you.
I don't have a lot of updates from Community Action Partnership, but I just want to mention that I did attend the community meeting, the Community Clay Street meeting that was held last Friday to discuss incidents involving, in the surrounding area involving persons that are experiencing homelessness and other populations. And I was very pleased that it was a well-run and meeting, and there wasn't a lot of contentious discussion, and that I believe there's going to be some solutions presented to the public at some point, because the facilitators met immediately following the meeting to look at solutions and there to present that. So I'm really pleased that it turned out that way, because there have been some real tragic incidents in that neighborhood that all of us would like to see prevented in the future. So good meeting, a lot of people.
So in my split role, Hollister's doing well. Chinatown Navigation Center. So our slated opening date for our 15-bed bridge housing that we're going to be opening up is supposed to be, well, it's going to be February 1st. We hit a couple of snags. The fire marshal. A lot of it has to do with the fact that that building is not zoned for any type of residential. So we're having to do just a lot of stuff. I was sharing with Enrique, I was like, I don't know how you did it with the home. We're only doing 15 beds, and it's already, I'm already like, oh my God, what's going on? But I'm happy to say that we've met with the Peer Advisory Council 3 times already to go over our program guidelines. I'm happy to say that they are the same program guidelines that are currently at the Hollister shelter. And all of the people that were part of that advisory council actually didn't have a problem with any of the guidelines that we're going to be putting forth. Specifically the safety ones, the searches, the drugs, the alcohol kind of stuff. We're also taking a look at, which is going to impact the restroom usage out there in showers. We are going to be taking a look at modifying the times of restrooms and showers to only one time. Because one of the biggest concerns of the Peer Advisory Council was, if this is their bridge housing, then how can we allow other people to use the showers and restrooms when they want to use it? So it became this really big discussion. So we really, really want to listen to what the Peer Advisory Council say, because they're the experts out there and they're the ones that know. So we are revisiting that portion of it. We will be providing dinner for them on site. So we're going to be converting 15 beds. We have not decided if it's going to be all female beds or if it's going to be mixed. We haven't decided, because the thing is, we can only use the big room now for sleeping quarters temporarily, because the offices don't have enough ventilation. So if that's the case, then it's going to be one gender only. And I can't say which way we're swaying, because we're kind of going back and forth on it. I know what I want, but I don't get the final say. But that's kind of what we're looking at. they're coming in. We are gonna have cameras out there, so we're looking at the camera units where we're gonna put them. But I'm glad they're having interviews today for the manager, so I'm really excited about that because I learned I'm not young anymore and I can't split myself in two places anymore because after a while you get kind of tired. But I'm really excited that they're going to be doing that. But I'm still going to have say as to the program pieces of it. That was my commitment to the city of Salinas, and so that's it's pretty much where we're going. And I know they just sent out to the other providers the selection processes on how they're going to do a lottery system. So everything's all in a process. From there, then the selection of whoever's going to get the 15 beds will then be happening rather quickly.
Thank you, Robin.
Sure. I'll give the update for the capital development part of our HEAP funding. We're pretty much on track with the development of the project. Right now, there's a little hang up because it's unclear who has authority or jurisdiction to do the plan check and approvals. It was suggested by the city and county that it's actually state HCD since it's a portable unit. So make a long story short, we can't find any registration plate or any paperwork that the county has for how the building is registered. So it's kind of like a hot potato now. The city and the county and HCD are all sort of batting it back and forth saying it's not their jurisdiction. And so we don't yet have someone stepping up to do the plan check, which has to be done. Otherwise, you're doing it in reverse and you're risking a lot of things having to be redone, so we're not going to be doing that. So we're still slated to go out to bid later this month. If
Robin, do you need any support from the coalition in that?
We might, and this has all just come to light this Monday, so.
Okay. Well, let me know.
Okay. But we still would like to go out to bid because the rest of the bid packet's ready to go. We just need to drop everything in. So we'd like to go out to bid by the end of January. The target date was January. So we're still, if everything goes according to plan, we will still be starting construction in April and opening in October. So, so we got a grant from the Fund for Homeless Women to hire the program manager 3 months or so in advance of opening the shelter. So we would be recruiting to hire someone around June or July, and that person would spend 3 or 4 months developing the protocols and developing relationships in the community and creating all the forms. And so we're ready to go on the staffing part of it. Our partnership with Gathering for Women is going really well. They're great to work with, and we've already started getting our funding plan, the sustainability part of the funding plan, into place, and we'll be approaching the jurisdictions in February and March for inclusion and hopefully inclusion in their 2021 budgets. Since we only have partial funding for 2021, we will need operating as soon as, after the first quarter of 2021. And Sean, do you want to give the update on the street outreach program?
Yeah, perfect. So the Salinas Valley Street Outreach Program, we have been, we just started our vans, so we've been able to start canvassing. That started in January, beginning of January. And we already have 6 clients for providing supportive services to homeless youth. And prior to getting the vans, we had our street outreach program counselors connecting with different agencies and entities within the Salinas Valley. And what's been really great is since they've also been doing the basic needs drive that we have been doing on the Peninsula shelter for many years, they've been able to get all sorts of feminine hygiene products, socks, underwear, warm clothes, beanies, things like that. So our shelves are overfilling with all of these basic needs. And something that has come to fruition from meeting with all of these different partners is we had one of our counselors meet with some administrators at Salinas High School, and they've now set up for a group of seniors as their capstone project to participate in the basic needs drive. So we have, instead of having like one box there, which we've done at different businesses, At Salinas High School, there's 11 boxes. So, so it's been, it's really been taken off. So luckily we got our vans, and so the program's going, we're up and running.
Sean, one question.
Sure.
Where's the office?
So our office is located right behind the Salinas Valley Bowling, so right on South Main Street.
Dangerously close to Mayo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's right next to that Quick Mart at San Miguel.
Yeah.
It's like 2 doors
Oh,
down
yeah,
from that.
yeah, okay, okay. Thank you.
It is, it is just like a home base. It is, we do not see clients at
Right,
this,
right,
yeah.
right. Uh-huh.
But there have been other agencies that have been really supportive of if we need to have meetings with individuals who are homeless, that we can borrow an office or something somewhere.
Yeah, we have the outpatient program and Off-Main Clinic are right next door.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because for so many years, we couldn't really get a handle on where the population of youth experiencing homeless was in that area. So it sounds like you all are really gaining some great momentum.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I could offer you some outreach if you need help finding clients.
Thank you.
That'd be really great.
Thank you.
Betsy. So we've had 6 households move in at Moongate, which is exciting. We still do not have an operational elevator, but we are at the last step. The state has been called, so we are trying to get the state inspector out there to certify the elevator. We submitted a permit application for the Integrated Wellness Center for CSUMB. We have plan check comments back from the city. We're working to respond to those, and we're getting bids for the cost to build out that space. We still are looking to hire a community manager for the property and also maintenance tech, so if you know anyone. And I'm also still trying to raise another $800,000 or so to build out the rest of the ground floor retail space, so.
Betsy, would the manager be residential?
We do have a unit available for the maintenance tech or the manager, depending on, you know, who needs a unit. The unit is available.
So thank you, everyone. I am going to forego Dorothy's Place comments because we don't have anything particularly groundbreaking to announce out of interest of time. I am going to be putting on next agenda discussion about do we need to lengthen our meeting. We've actually gone 2 hours and it's all been very valuable discussion, so we're going to be asking for your input on that. The bylaws committee meeting is supposed to start at 11 as well as the Mid-Penn update meeting. So that's 4 minutes away and we don't seem to have time for a board business meeting. But I am going to make time for a meeting because we're going to say no transition. We're going to ask everybody who's not a board member to leave the room as efficiently as possible so that the board can have a 4-minute meeting.